Welcome to Two Open Doors, the podcast that explores our power to open or close the doors of relationship with the important people in our lives. We hope you'll learn from and share your wisdom with our community. Thanks for joining us. In this post, we'll explore the essence of deep human connection, what it is and how it works. We'll also consider the relationship between deep connection and spiritual practices that address the embodiment of that connection, such as tantra. When we think about it, the possibility of creating deep connections between humans seems like a pretty mysterious and almost miraculous thing. How is it that we can come to truly see and know how another person experiences and inhabits the world? How is it that we can feel welcomed into another person's world through emotional expressions of caring, validation, and support? How is it possible for us to both receive and be invited to share pleasure with another person? The answer seems to transcend explanation in terms of mere psychological or physical mechanisms. It seems to require us to invoke a sense of the spiritual, an elusive, visceral sense that we are all connected at some fundamental level. As used here, the term spiritual doesn't require us to appeal to invisible forces or entities, as is done in many religions. Instead, it simply refers to a deeply felt sense of connection. This spiritual connection may be something that we intuit, rather than something that we reason our way to. In her wonderful most recent book, Atlas of the Heart, the well-known emotion researcher and social worker Brené Brown addresses the spiritual roots of deep human connection. Here's her perspective, quote, "True belonging is the spiritual practice of believing in and belonging to yourself so deeply that you can share your most authentic self with the world and find sacredness in both being a part of something and standing alone in the wilderness. True belonging doesn't require you to change who you are. It requires you to be who you are." In this short but dense statement, Brené integrates several separate but related conclusions regarding deep connection. First, deep connection is a spiritual practice which embodies how we exist in and relate to the world of people and things in which we live. It is founded on the personal authenticity that can come from deep self-knowledge and self-acceptance. Our deep connection exists first with our authentic self, that is, alone in the wilderness, and then in our role in being a part of something beyond us. And in first belonging to ourselves, that is, being who you are, we also become able to belong to others. These observations hark back to our earlier posts in which we've considered the importance of self-knowledge and self-acceptance. Without knowing who we are and feeling our basic worthiness to connect with others, we simply aren't able to enter into healthy and satisfying relationships. We can't be clear about what we're offering to others, and we can't be certain about what we seek in relating to others. Of course, our level of self-understanding can be expected to evolve throughout our life as we learn from our experiences and connections. Similarly, coming to know and accept our many good traits, as well as our foibles and weaknesses, is the work of a lifetime. We can impede our ability to connect with others by leading an unexamined life, or by undermining our self-knowledge through self-deception. Similarly, we can impede our ability to connect by refusing to hold ourselves accountable for our decisions and actions, or, at the other extreme, by being unrealistically self-critical and unaccepting of our frailties. How then does spirituality enter into intimate connection? For many of us, spirituality is something that we view as otherworldly and ethereal, certainly nothing that is potentially related to our ability to connect deeply with others in more than an abstract way. Taking our cue from Brené Brown, though, we see that deep connection occurs between whole human beings. It involves elements of mind, emotions, spirit, and body. These aren't just separate facets of who we are, they are all deeply intertwined. For example, our mind has a role in determining how we see our body, and in what we focus on in our life, and in how we regulate our emotions. Our emotions largely shape what our minds focus on, and how our body responds to things that we experience in the physical world. Things that we experience in our body stir our emotions, and open our minds to new possibilities for connection. And our spirit can strongly affect how we react emotionally to another person, and spirit can also color our thoughts about that person. our experience of life is holistic. Of course, not every human interaction involves a spiritual connection. Even sensual or sexual interactions can remain simply playful and focused on shared pleasure rather than on soul-to-soul union. However, the perspective presented here is that a deep human connection does involve a spiritual connection, in addition to a physical, emotional, and mental connection. In a deep human connection, energy flows between partners on all planes of our existence. In my experience, there's nothing more satisfying than participating in a deep human connection that engages all aspects of one's being. The idea of an energy exchange in relationship may seem a little elusive when viewed from a purely materialistic perspective. Such an exchange doesn't seem to involve any flow of physical, measurable energy. Perhaps it's just a useful metaphor for what happens in the context of a deep connection. Be that as it may, anyone who has experienced such a connection can surely attest to the feeling of flowing warmth and power that draw one toward and into one's partner. In a deep relationship, both partners experience that flow, which seems to feed on itself to produce a kind of resonance between partners. In my personal experience, that's as close to a feeling of transcendence as I have come. The experience of a deeply spiritual connection leaves an indelible stamp on both partners. It's accompanied by a feeling of tranquility, peace, acceptance, and open invitation to fully know and unite with one's partner. Pretenses and masks drop away as we open ourselves to be fully seen and known. Love, which is an expression of wanting nothing but good for one's partner, undiluted by a self-serving agenda, is free to flow between partners. Joy and a lightness of spirit prevail in a way that has no parallel in our worry-filled daily life. The partners in such an exchange can look down on the panorama of their lives while standing hand in hand on the mountaintop of this magnificent experience. Let's think now about Tantra and the possibility of spiritual sex. It's hard to imagine a more personal and vulnerable experience than opening one's mind, heart, spirit, and body to another person. It's equally hard to imagine a more fulfilling and satisfying experience than being able to do that with another person. That's what a deeply connected sexual experience is about. A number of Eastern religious traditions have long recognized the inherent connection between sensuality, sexuality, and a spiritual experience of transcendence. This is true of Hindu, Buddhist, and Jain religious traditions. In particular, spirituality lies at the core of the practices of Tantra, which originated in India in the 7th century or before. Classical Tantra seeks full personal awakening through meditation, study, and ritual, with a focus on sexual energy limited to advanced studies. In contrast, in the last 150 years or so, a derivative practice called Neo-Tantra has developed to focus more on practices that deepen intimacy and interpersonal connection. That's the version of Tantra that we discuss here, and which we refer to when we use the word Tantra. Tantra means weaving in Sanskrit. In Tantra, the bodies, minds, hearts, and spirits of two partners become woven together by the flow of energy of connection between them. A tantric connection involves a whole being connection between two people. Not surprisingly, Tantra involves practices that are intended to help partners open to one another and come together. Tantric practices recognize that full connection calls not only for partners who are in a state that is conducive to deep connection, but also for an environment that facilitates that connection. In the sort of sacred space that Tantra advocates, distractions such as daily worries are checked at the door so that they do not intrude upon or distract from connection. In lieu of frenzied connection, tantric sex focuses the partners on slowing down and becoming fully present with and for one another. This is achieved through soulful eye-gazing, since the eyes can be the windows into the soul, as well as by slowing and synchronizing breathing, by exchanging heart-to-heart touch connections, and through loving sensual or sexual massage. Each partner strives to become fully attentive to their partner to let the connection slowly deepen in an unhurried and fully present way. Partners may alternate their giving and receiving of pleasure to enjoy their connection as fully as possible. So what are some of the benefits of Tantra? Tantric practices can create energy exchanges that far outstrip the intensity of more usual, short, intimate sharing experiences, enjoyable as those might be. Tantric lovemaking may last for hours rather than minutes or even seconds. It can, and often does, enable multiple orgasms for women, as well as delayed ejaculation and multiple non-ejaculatory orgasms for men. Tantric sex can release the power of one's full sensual and sexual potential. Like all approaches to spiritual sexuality, Tantra is about a lot more than maximizing sensual and sexual pleasure. At its root, it's about enabling partners to bring their full self into a relationship in all of their beauty and authenticity. Tantra provides a path to grow as an individual in all of the dimensions of one's being. In growing as an individual, we also become more capable of growing in our deep connections with others. Spiritual sex helps us become the fullest and richest humans that we can be. To learn more about Two Open Doors and to engage with our community, I'd like to invite you to visit the Two Open Doors podcast. I also invite you to contact me directly by writing to me at Claude, C-L-A-U-D-E, at twoopendoors.com. I'd love to hear from you, and I'll use your inputs to guide my work on future blog posts and podcast episodes. Thanks for visiting Two Open Doors.